Seconds ago, breaking news on Deshaun Watson.
Big. Deshaun Watson suspended 11 games, Colin. $5 million fine, as Shannon Sharp just said, the largest ever levied against a player. Yeah. And a lot of questions now for your Cleveland Browns, and Jacoby Brissett heading into the season.
All right, so there it is. That's the news that came out earlier today regarding Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson, suspended 11 games, $5 million fine. That sound, of course, was courtesy of the Herd, Colin Cowherd himself, and his co-host. That was not Joy Bryant. Oh, by the way, I am Willie FT Jr. Welcome to a special edition of the Ballers Report podcast, courtesy and powered by the Shakeback Media Group. I got the First Lady of Sports, her in the huddle, the lead host there. That, of course, is Rachel Hill. She is grounded in Cleveland, so I'm going to bring her in here in just a second. You know she's got some takes on this, as we've talked about this on, I guess it would be okay for me to say our show since I'm on there quite a bit, but her in the huddle Monday and Tuesday, 5 to 6 Central Time, 6 to 7 Eastern on WOVU in Cleveland, Ohio, 95.9. We're going to bring her in here in just a second. But again, thank you guys out there for checking us out on YouTube Live as well as Instagram Live and Twitter. So before we actually get into the proceedings, man, you already know what we got to do. You already know what it is. So without further ado, let's go get it.
Right about now, you're about to be possessed by the sounds.
Yeah, I know what it is. You little suckers get to talking, grabbing and walking, strapped to the pong of the jaws and smacking they sleep with the coffins. And they getting greedy like saying, give me all.
Yes, sir, buddy. You already know what it is when you hear that music. Once again, it is on big time, baby. Breaking news. Let me go ahead and bring her in. She is based in Cleveland. She is my sissy from another Missy. You can see and hear her on Her in the Huddle. As we said, Monday and Tuesday, 5 to 6, 6 to 7 Central and Eastern Time. She is the lead host of Her in the Huddle. And my good friend and friend of the Shakeback Media Group, none other than the First Lady of Sports, Rachel Hill. What's up, Rach?
Hi, Willie. How are you?
I'm good. So you heard, let me ask you this. What was your reaction when you heard the news that Colin Cowherd just expressed on the Herd regarding your quarterback, Deshaun Watson, and the 11-game suspension from the NFL and the $5 million fine?
I was just like, oh my God. After the six games was supposedly going to be appealed, we didn't know what was going to happen. They knew that announcement was going to be made soon. When you heard that there were negotiations taking place instead of Peter Harvey dropping his decision, you were like, okay, this should be good. But 11 games, it's a lot of games, and you didn't want Jacoby Brissett having to start 11 games for this team. But, I guess that 11 games is better than the whole season or indefinite suspension, which was what the NFL was seeking. So I guess this is somewhat of a win. It feels like a loss, but it's somewhat of a win because it could be worse. Because the indefinite suspension, you got to apply for reinstatement, all that other stuff. But, Deshaun Watson is going to be quarterbacking for the Cleveland Browns this season. So that's a good thing. It's not as many games as we would like or hoped, because I felt like her suspension originally was adequate. It's not what we wanted, but it is what it is. And all everybody can do at this point is just move on, and the Cleveland Browns can try to, focus and start playing football and try to get some wins. And they now know what the state of their quarterback is going to be.
Yeah, and I want to touch on what you said about indefinite, because first of all, let me back up, because I feel like I need to say this. We are not going to disparage the Cleveland Browns, the Houston Texans, Deshaun Watson, or those ladies that were victimized by this whole situation. We want to make sure that we give respect and honor and credence, and make sure that that they know that we're not sweeping this under the rug by what we're going to be talking about here, because I don't want to get into the arena or into the conversation of did he do it? Did he not do it? We're specifically going to be talking about the game itself. So, and how it's going to affect the Cleveland Browns moving forward. So with that being said, we want to, of course, pay homage to those ladies and make sure that they understand that we're not forgetting what everything that they went through. But this is just not the show for that, as far as do we think he did it or didn't do it. So let me just clarify that. And secondly, when you mentioned, and then another thing too is that he has to go through counseling, and which I'm totally glad that they actually implemented that part of it into the agreement, because I believe wholeheartedly that is something that needed to be in there, where he's actually being not necessarily the face of this particular issue, but at least being in a position to where he could show some sort of contrition. Whether or not you believe he means it or not, that's not even up for debate. But the fact that from the optical standpoint, it's going to look that way. And then, of course, the $5 million fine. Now, when you said indefinite suspension, that's something that we talked about before on Her in the Huddle. And me and Marshawn got into it big time about that, because whether you agree with the 6 games or not, I was shocked when it came out with 6 games. And I had been on the record of saying that if it was going to be less than 10, I would be shocked. But I believe that if you do an indefinite suspension, and I didn't know, Rachel, about the reinstatement part, so that actually would actually curb my enthusiasm for that particular thought. So what has been, when you first heard the news and you being right there in Cleveland, what was some of the reaction of some of the people that you may have been around when the news came out?
I pretty much was by myself because I didn't have to go to the office today. But the various talk shows I listened to, a lot of the callers were not in agreement with it at all, and everybody was satisfied with Sue Robinson's number. But most people weren't in agreement because they want this football team to win, and anything that hinders that football team from doing so, they're against it. So I think a lot of people have moved on from this situation. It's a very complicated situation. And they're fans of the Cleveland Browns and they want their team to win. So most people were kind of taken aback and felt like 11 was too many. It's funny how you say you'd be shocked if it was less than 10. So you kind of got that number. I'm surprised it's an odd number. Usually, the NFL deals with even numbers. So it's surprising that it's 11 games, but you look at a bye week is included in there as well. But you look, he's not going to be playing football until December 4th, and we are in August right now, we're in the middle of August, but heading towards the end of August. So he's not playing football until December. And his first game back is going to be against the Houston Texans. So a lot of people noted that. And that was something that I was hearing. The NFL did not want him to play in that game in Houston, but he's coming back against Houston. So I talked to one of my friends, and they actually had told me a couple of days ago that they were going to the Houston game. So now that game means a lot, and could be a lot of Browns fans there in Houston to cheer this team on.
And people can say that it's a coincidence or not. I'm not. This is not what this is about. And again, we're specifically talking about the suspension itself and our opinions and what this is going to do to the Cleveland Browns football team. And you said it is funny that there was an odd number of games because it's 11. But my thinking is that the reason why they chose 11 or any other odd number would be for the Browns to have an even number of games of which he would be back. So he could either go 4-2 or 5-1 or whatever the case may be, instead of 3-2 or 2-3 or 4-3 or 3-4, whatever that number would be. That would be my only thought behind that. So did you actually see the post? Actually, because this all happened while the Browns were at practice. I think they're heading. Who are they playing this week for the preseason? Is it the Titans?
Philadelphia Eagles.
So he was on the practice field when this happened. and when it broke, and they were all saying that the agreement had to be signed in order for it to be finalized. And Diana Rossini from ESPN had reported that the camp was going to indeed sign it. So immediately, or not really immediately, but after he signed it and came off the field, he was actually at the doing a press conference himself. Did you actually hear some of the things that he said?
Yeah, I heard that press conference. So the Eagles got in town after it happened because I was watching something on Facebook and the reporter showed the buses. So I'm not sure if they had practiced just yet, or maybe the Browns had did individual drills or what have you. But they were there at the facility waiting on the Eagles to get there. But yeah, pretty much he was he was contrite and, offered apologies and stuff like that. He's remained very tight-lipped because of the legal situation. So, he hasn't divulged much, during the opportunities that he has talked, but, he continues to apologize. D and Jimmy Haslam spoke to, the general manager spoke to, and they talked about, donating $1 million. Cleveland Browns and NFL are jointly donating $1 million each to sex education against sexual assault, all that other stuff. So I think that, this matter is being taken seriously. Deshaun Watson still states, that he didn't do anything wrong. And we don't know what took place at those massage sessions. He went through a lot of massage therapists. My thing is Deshaun Watson put himself in this position. He's the only one. So it's a very complicated situation. It's a very difficult situation. And I think the outcome is what the outcome is. But, he's all about apologizing now, kind of going on the apology tour. But he's been very tight-lipped and very apologetic about those who, to women and those who have been affected. Even the men, he was like, I'm apologizing to everybody, for everything. I want to be a better person. I want to be a better football player. And, everybody deserves a second chance. And it's time for, everybody to be able to move on from this. The Cleveland Browns, the fans, and, hopefully one day the women can move on as well, and put this chapter in their lives behind them. But, he's been very contrite and apologetic and things of that nature more than anything now.
Yeah. And I was going to go there, particularly with the apology, because he didn't apologize, Rachel, for the actual acts. He didn't apologize for being accused of being guilty. He apologized for his poor choices that he made. So with that, to me, he's like a tightrope, because he's understanding of the person that he is as a public figure, and you can't put yourself in those types of positions, which really balances out in terms of him still screaming from the mountaintops, yo, I didn't do this, I didn't do this, I didn't do this. But I agree with you. I think the NFL, well, we know that the NFL wanted the 16 games. They wanted the entire season. The Browns were just kind of in limbo. We already know what Deshaun Watson's camp wanted. And in a negotiation, you have to come to an agreement, and you've got experience with negotiating just like I do. Each side of the table is going to give up something. And that's just the way that a negotiations go. Now, we got a comment, and I'm going to read some comments that I got on my Facebook page, Rachel, because there's some pretty interesting comments out there too. And then we're going to get into the schedule and what is it going to do for the Browns' chances this season, what we think they're going to do with Jacoby Brissett under center. Is there a chance that Jimmy Garoppolo will be? I know you like Jimmy Garoppolo. Is there a chance that Jimmy Garoppolo will end up in Cleveland? Who knows? We'll see. But you know our boy George B. He always chiming in, man, and we appreciate and love George so much. He says, I can live with the 11-game suspension. I can't live with an agreed arbitrator making a ruling, but not to the liking of the Shield. Then why was she put there? Also, was this their first case? And he makes a lot of points, because that's what a lot of people have a problem with. It's the fact that this was collectively bargained between the NFLPA and the league But then the league said, no, we don't like this. So that's the hypocrisy part of it that we've talked about so much that we won't really get into in this show because, again, we're not here to really do that. We've discussed that ad nauseum regarding it. Look, that could be a whole series of shows in itself about the hypocrisy of the NFL. But let's go ahead and talk about the season, Rachel, because the first 11 games the first 11 weeks, the schedule is pretty light up until about week 5. You got Carolina in Charlotte. You got the New York Jets at home. You got the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. Then you go down to Atlanta for the Falcons. And then it gets a little bit real. So after the first 4 games of the year, from September the 11th through October the 2nd, with those teams, where do you see the Browns record-wise at the fifth week of the season?
It's hard to predict. You have Jacoby Brissett, who, has been in a couple different systems. He's been with the New England Patriots. He's been with the Indianapolis Colts, and this is a good team. There's some issues at wide receiver, obviously, that I think will be straightened out. They just picked somebody up off of a waiver the other day. I forgot his name, but he's the receiver / kick returner. And we lost our kick returner, so that was huge. But you hope that you have developed these receivers. And Anthony Schwartz, I know that there's a lot of negative talk about him because he has issues dropping the ball. Football is not his first sport; it's track. You got a speedy guy, but he has to learn how to catch that ball. If you can, make sure that everybody is on the same page rhythm-wise, I think that they can win some of these games. I don't necessarily see them winning the Chargers game. Let me look at the schedule right quick.
I got it right here, actually. So the Chargers game is week 5, and then that's what I was saying. It gets real after that. You got the Chargers in week 5 at home. You have the Patriots in week 6 at home. You go on the road to Baltimore. And then week 8, you're home to Cincinnati. Week 9 is the bye week. And then you got 2 road games at Miami, at Buffalo, home to Tampa. And Deshaun Watson comes back on December the 4th as they go down to Houston and take on the Texans. And we can look, and I'm going to read a couple of comments because I got somebody that I went to high school with that actually lives in Houston. And he put a very profound comment. So look, to me, they have to win those first 4 games. They have to go 4-0. And they absolutely have to. Your thoughts?
They can. They absolutely can. The schedule was built up, front end with these games that are absolutely winnable because you got teams that are on the downside. You never know because the Pittsburgh Steelers always, even when they're down, they always perform well against the Cleveland Browns. But things are different, because we don't have that quarterback. You have Jacoby Brissett, who, you want him to be a game manager and manage your games. You don't want him doing too much. You don't want him doing too little. But it definitely gets tough after those games, those first 4 games. I don't know. It's a toss up, if they can come out. I mean, the Patriots, that's a tough game. Bill Belichick, wants to murder us every time he plays us because of what happened in Cleveland with, being fired. But I'm like, if anything, yes, you have this firing on your resume, but you have all these championships. So you went on and done wonderful things. So you kind of should be thanking the Cleveland Browns for getting rid of you.
You don't mean that. You don't mean that.
Yeah, he made out great out of the deal. What is he talking about?
But you don't really mean that he should be thanking the Cleveland Browns. He's not gonna do that. You know that. That's Bill Belichick.
But he should be.
He didn't even thank Tom Brady for all those Super Bowls. So whatever. But anyway, go ahead.
Bill is ornery. That you were looking at that Chargers game to be a revenge game because of how that game went last season, which, we were leading and should have won and unfortunately gained that lead up. So you were looking for that to be a revenge game. So that is going to be a tough game. That's a toss up. Justin Herbert, if he comes in here and do his thing, that could be a problem. The Ravens, Lamar is always a challenge for us. And right now he's going through contract contract situation. So that's always a tough game. And we are in Baltimore. So it all depends. We've been able to win in Baltimore before, but it's very far in between. Next, we have the AFC champions and the Bengals, and that is on Halloween night. That is a Monday night football game. So that game could kind of be difficult because last year the Cleveland Browns swept Cincinnati. So Cincinnati is going to be looking for revenge against a team that beat them 2 times. You know, you have I was going to say Joe Flacco, but Joe Burrow, you know, coming off of an excellent season. And, you know, I think that they're seeking revenge. So that definitely could be a tough game. They should be able to beat the Dolphins. The Dolphins are terrible.
No, the Dolphins are not terrible.
What you say?
Did you see what the Dolphins did in the offseason? They're not terrible, but go ahead.
Well, they should be able to beat the Dolphins. Despite, you know, what I said of them being terrible or not, they should be able to beat the Dolphins. The Buffalo Bills, that's going to be a tough game. You know, they are at Buffalo, which is a tough place to play. Last time they played Buffalo, they beat Buffalo. So this could be a little bit of revenge for the Buffalo Bills. And Josh Allen, you know, is a great quarterback. And I could easily see this being a loss. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't know where Tom Brady is at. People should put out an APB for him, but he always plays well against the Cleveland Browns, so that should be a loss.
And then he comes back. And then he comes back for week 13.
Yeah, and they should be able to win that game against the Texans. The Texans are not a good team. Because remember, we had played the schedule game with Deshaun Watson, and now that game changes without him. So they should be able to beat the Texans. They'll be playing the next week. They'll be playing the bank. That's going to be a huge game. There's going to be so many people there. There were a lot of chants in Jacksonville. There's going to be a lot of chants in Texas and a lot of boos. I'm excited to see how many, you know, Browns fans might show up. It's definitely not going to be as many, you know, Browns fans there as Texan fans, but I imagine that's going to be a huge ticket in Houston for that game.
Yeah. And let me interrupt you for just a second because I wanted to ask you a question in regard to who has the better quarterback from week 1 to week 13 or week 12 rather. So basically, it's the Cleveland Browns quarterback Jacoby Brissett against Baker Mayfield. Who would you say has the better quarterback in that matchup?
I would say Carolina Panthers.
Okay, so the next week is not Mac Jones. It's the kid from New York. I can't even think of his name. The quarterback there, Jacoby Brissett versus Zach Wilson. Who's the better quarterback in that matchup?
I would say that's a tough one. A slight edge to Zach Wilson.
Ooh, that's kind of surprising. So the reason why I'm doing this is because week 3 against the Steelers is Jacoby Brissett again. It'll be Jacoby Brissett and Mitchell Trubisky. The Falcons in week 4 will be Brissett against Marcus Mariota. Week 6 it'll be Justin Herbert. Week 5 it'll be Justin Herbert. Week 6 it'll be Mac Jones. Week 7 it'll be Lamar Jackson. Week 8 it'll be Joe Burrow. Week 9 it will be Tua. Week 11 will be Josh Allen. Week 12 will be Tom Brady. So in those 12 matchups or in those 11 games, the Browns may only have the quarterback edge in possibly 2, maybe 3 of those games. That's troubling. That's very troubling. They're going to so they're going to have to rely heavily on, Kareem Hunt. Is he going to run with authority? Because I understand he's not happy with his current deal. He is in camp though, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did the hold in for 1 day.
Okay, so
participating, and if he want another deal, you auditioning for all the teams in the league as well too. You talking about you want to be traded, so I think he's going to play to the best of his ability, and hopefully he's not injured at all because we definitely are going to need him. We're going to need Nick Chubb. We're going to need that screen game more than ever as well.
Yeah, Nick Chubb, Dearness Johnson, and Kareem Hunt make a very much a formidable backfield. And Njoku is one of the top 10 tight, or I would say top 15 tight ends in the league. The defense is going to have to.
You went from 10 to 15?
Okay, I'll give him 12. I'll give him top 12. I'll give him top 12. And then, of course, that defense is going to have to really, really, really come into play. They underperformed a great deal last year, and they're going to have to really, really step it up. Okay, so at the end of the season, when Deshaun comes back, of course, at Houston, at Cincinnati, home to Baltimore, home to the Saints, at the Commanders, and then home to Pittsburgh. I'm really interested to see how he's going to play. I think he's going to go down to Houston and just put up I can't really say that because we don't know. The last time we saw Deshaun Watson in a meaningful NFL game was 7,306 days ago, seemingly. But and in the last game he played in, he looked kind of bad.
I was about to say 7,000. Oh, I realized you were
not quite that many. Not quite that many. But you know what I'm saying, though. It just seems like it probably feels like him that's going to be that long. So I don't even want to get into what I think or what we think is going to happen those last games when he's there, because I think we need to see what he looks like against Houston. And then we can kind of gauge from there. So it's just crazy how this is going to affect the Browns team that many people think that with Deshaun Watson is a viable Super Bowl contender. Now, let me ask you this before we get up out of here. Jimmy Garoppolo is is supposedly going to be out there and available, because I think the 49ers have, I want to say 11 or 12 days to either waive him or trade him, or his salary is going to hit the cap. Any chance? Okay, let me ask you this, being in Cleveland, is there any inside information that you can share from anybody up there that you commune with that has any idea about Jimmy Garoppolo possibly showing up in Cleveland?
Everybody's been pretty tight-lipped about that. The Browns have been very tight-lipped as well. Some people are saying that Jacoby Brissett and Jimmy Garoppolo are the same quarterback, so there's no point in going after Jimmy. The Browns have been adamant before about who their quarterback is going to be when it was Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is our quarterback, and they showed that he wasn't, because they got on that plane and went to Houston and got Deshaun Watson. So it could be all smoke screens. They could be saying Jacoby Brissett is their quarterback and go ahead and get Jimmy Garoppolo. It's about winning. They want to win. Josh Rosen is going to help them win. Jacoby Brissett is going to help them win. I like Jimmy G besides him being fine. I've always thought, he was a decent quarterback, and he's been able to get to the Super Bowl. So I think that you could use him in his arm, and it's going to be interesting because they say one thing and then do another, because like I said, they said that Baker Mayfield was the quarterback of the future for this team, even though they didn't sign him. But that's what they said, and Deshaun Watson is here now, so they could say one thing and completely do the opposite.
Yeah, no doubt, and we know that the NFL are basically professional fib tellers, and they will say just about anything to get us, the media, off their backs. All right, Rachel, before we get out of here, I got some social media comments from my Facebook page when I posted. Actually, I broke this on. I shouldn't say I broke it, because I didn't really break it, but I titled it "Breaking News" on Twitter before ESPN did. So I'm not saying I knew about it before they did, but what I'm saying is that I posted it on Twitter before they did, and before a lot of other people did as well. I'm not trying
actually, somebody who isn't, I don't even think it in the media actually broke it, because the NFL put it on his website at 11:30, exactly 11:30 p.m. and nobody had it. Adam Schefter didn't break it or anything like that. So it was somebody, I think, like a person not in the media to actually break it. So
ain't that nothing?
I know, right?
All right, so let me read some of these. Let me read these comments. Craig Knight, my cuz, what's up, big cuz? He says Mr. Roger needs to go. Of course, he's talking about Roger Goodell. Roosevelt Canfield, my big homie from high school, Perny. He said that's jacked up. Ben Roethlisberger raped 2 women, and his 6-game suspension was reduced to 4. Facts. Roy Winters, big bro, that's crazy. If we would have just listened to John Sally, or if he would have just listened to John Sally, I'm assuming he's talking about Deshaun Watson. He preached to all the athletes, don't fall for the okie doke. It's all a setup. There is always someone out there listening to someone else to get you, your money, your fame, and most of all of your character. Yeah. Michael James Hamilton, who will be a part of the super show that we'll be doing, Rachel, on September the 6th. He says, I think he got off good. 11 games and $5 million for being a serial creep is rather accommodating. Okay. Chanel Redmond Jupiter, what's up, sis? She responded to Mike by saying a lot of men should be fined and out of a job if they're just speaking of being a creep. Okay, we're gonna skip on because her next comment is like really, really long, and I don't think we have much time any more time. So let's see. Chris Elam, he's actually in Houston, Rachel. He lives down there. We were teammates in high school, basketball teammates. He said he might get more and louder boos than any Astros player has received since Major League Baseball made an example out of them and not their beloved Yankees and Red Sox. Poetic justice that he would return to the field the week the Browns played the Texans. He said it would be relentless. And you spoke on that a little earlier in the show about how those fans down there in Houston will be. And then one final comment from George, still trying to figure out why we signed Rosen in the first place. He got dealt a bad hand in Arizona, which is very true. But at some point, you're gonna find out what and who a player is. And there were questions about Rosen coming out of college about whether or not he really wanted to play football, whether he loved the game enough to put in the work and the commitment that's needed to be a successful player in this league. So, Rachel, any final thoughts?
It's going to be an interesting season for the Cleveland Browns. With Deshaun Watson only being suspended for 6 games like originally it was supposed to be originally, the Cleveland Browns had a chance to contend and possibly make the playoffs. But we don't know what Deshaun Watson's going to look like when he come back. He was rusty in a preseason game. So, the whole thing is a word I use a lot is going to be interesting. So the whole thing is going to be very interesting to see how this team fares the rest of the season.
And I'm in agreement. I mean, we just don't know what we're going to see. I think that if the Browns, by the time Deshaun comes back, are like 3-8, they're going to have to be really careful with him when he does come back so he doesn't get hurt. But again, when we got a lot of football until then, and there's going to be a lot of evidence to unfold as to what's going to happen with the Browns, not just this year, but in the future with their 230, what is it? Now he got $5 million knocked off of that contract. It's $223 million guaranteed contract over the next 4 years. So, all right, with that being said, we're going to get up out of here for the First Lady of Sports, Rachel Hill, for your boy, Willie Epteen Jr. This has been the Ballers Report podcast right here on the Shakeback Media Group. Thank you guys out there for checking us out on Facebook Live as well. As Twitter, as well as YouTube and Instagram. Make sure you smash the subscribe buttons and all new content for that bell. So, y'all take care of each other. Y'all hug each other. Y'all love each other. And we'll holler at y'all again real soon. Peace. We out.